Graeme, welcome to the Heavy Chef Show. Graeme from Whipping the Cat, and we've known each other for some time now, and you've been an avid supporter of Heavy Chef for the last couple of years, and we're eternally grateful for that. And I think over that time, I've gotten to know you, and I've gotten to know your approach to law, and I must say that you are one of the most unique legal minds that I've ever met, in the best possible way. I think you think differently about law and about the legal processes, which is thoroughly refreshing. And I think we'll get to some of those thoughts in a little while. But I thought I'd take the opportunity, Graeme, just to talk about you and your origin story, as well as potentially the route that you took into starting Whipping the Cat, and we will get to the naming of the agency or the firm a little bit later. But let's talk about the origin story first.
Fred, thanks very much. We absolutely, from Whipping the Cat, delighted to be associated with Heavy Chef and everything that you guys do and you guys stand for and associated with. I think there's a nice synergy. So delighted to be associated with Heavy Chef. And thank you for the compliment about kind of seeing law differently, because I think that's kind of one of the fundamental things that Whipping the Cat is about. Not being different for the sake of being different, but actually just genuinely believing that there's a different way and approach to doing things from a legal perspective.
Sure.
And I mean, the genesis of that really, I'm a qualified lawyer. Went to university and got all the degrees and gowns and tappings and all those things that's
refreshing.
You need to have.
Do you have your qualifications? Good.
Correct. And then my background really as a lawyer is primarily as an in-house lawyer, so working for large corporates in their in-house teams, as opposed to working for your traditional law firms. And I make that point because I spent a lot of my time working in and with business.
Sure.
So we're very outcomes based from a legal perspective, trying to get things done. When you're working in big corporate directors, they're not looking for kind of roadblocks and can't do attitude. They're looking for, this is what we want to do, how are we going to achieve it legally.
Where was that, by the way? Was that in Johannesburg?
So that was in Johannesburg.
Okay,
yeah.
gotcha.
That was kind of the big corporate environment within Johannesburg. A couple of big multinationals.
Sort of the early 2000s, around about
Correct.
there.
That's right. And that's working then with marketing teams, with finance teams, kind of understanding all the different dynamics of the business and what makes it tick. And as I say, I'm referring to that because I think that was instrumental in formulating my kind of outlook to the way legal services should be delivered, which is very outcomes based, and giving the client, the firm, whatever it is, the outcome that they're looking for.
Sure.
In a legally compliant way. Rather than being kind of just gatekeepers.
Sure. And how do you? I mean, from that point in the sort of 2000s to now, there's obviously been a massive shift in terms of, access to information and access to pretty much everything due to the digital economy. How has that impacted on law?
So I think just kind of picking up on my story, and which hopefully will then provide an answer to that question as well. I spent a couple of years in that big corporate environment. I worked for Accenture, the management consulting.
Sure.
And a lot of that was around software development. It was around implementation of software systems, business enabling tools. So at the time it was your CSM type software and whatever.
Okay.
And again, I was working from a legal perspective, but I was seeing the impact that technology actually was having on clients' business as these technologies were being implemented. Accenture was involved in setting up Cell C, so all the IT that underpinned Cell C. And I worked on that project for the best part of 2 years.
Oh, wow.
And seeing how IT was working and a fundamental part of that new business that was starting, it also kind of got my juices flowing.
Cheapers.
In terms of how IT would impact or could be used from within the legal service space.
So you were right at the coalface of that revolution, right?
Seeing some of that stuff actually happening. So I mean that also got me into the thought process of where's law going to go from an IT perspective. What could actually be used from an IT perspective within the legal field and the legal environment. And if you kind of fast forward to where we are now, and how much development there has been from a legal technology perspective, in terms of product offerings that facilitate and enable the legal profession to work better, that really has come a long way.
Gotcha.
However, having said that, it hasn't been kind of as quick as I would have expected it to be. So, I mean, I remember if I was doing this interview with you kind of 7-8 years ago, I would have been talking about a revolution that's coming within the legal service industry.
Sure.
Tech is going to change things.
I read
completely.
a lot about that. Yeah, people were saying, if you're a lawyer now, you should be scared because your job's not going to be
correct,
intact in a couple of years' time.
Correct. And I think, I mean, I was probably wrong on that, in the sense that there hasn't been a revolution. But there certainly has been an evolution.
Sure.
So things have changed, and if we look back now, kind of 5-10 years, you realize how far you've come.
Gotcha.
But it doesn't actually seem as if it's been a massive change from what there was to what there is now. It's been more evolutionary. And some of that has to do as well is the incremental change. Was a lot of the IT and tech that came into the legal service industry was actually to help lawyers do what they were doing. So it's more efficient billing or more efficient time management, or processes, etc. It wasn't actually about doing things differently.
Okay, so like enterprise services towards
correct.
The actual legal profession and the legal sector.
Exactly, and I think now, I mean, more recent times, you're starting to see the kind of the tech that's coming in that's actually client facing or business enabling, that can actually do away with the lawyer, or to be lawyer enabled, as opposed to enterprise stuff that's just helping lawyers.
So the more disruptive stuff.
The more disruptive stuff, I think, is starting to get its foothold now.
Do you think that's in South Africa, or do you think internationally there's been a lot more advancement? I mean, have you seen a revolution internationally as opposed to here?
So I think South Africa is lagging, and that's in my experience that's fairly typical.
Sure.
Things that happen elsewhere kind of get adopted within South Africa, but sometimes there can be a lag. Sometimes there's an opportunity to jump because we're kind of behind, so you can skip a few steps and get to the end point quicker.
Sure.
But I think at the moment South Africa is lagging. Excuse me. So I spent quite a bit of time in the UK as well, with management consultants there in the legal service industry. Again, that was 7, 8, 9 years ago, and the stuff that we were talking about and exploring with companies in the UK is just stuff that's kind of taking root and seed now. So I think there is a little bit of a lag, but when it comes, I think then it will come a little bit quicker. And the adoption. So we're probably at the early adopter kind of stage, and then with the mass to come.
And then I mean, with that in mind, at what point did you decide, right, it's time for me to take the leap, take this opportunity, and formulate something new and potentially disruptive of my own?
There came a point in my life where I felt that legal services just kind of wasn't being delivered in the most efficient way that it could be, in a way that actually serves the interest of the people that you're providing that service to. It felt a little bit kind of like them and us, a little bit
Sure.
abrasive.
Sure.
And I figured the only way to change that was to actually go and do what I wanted to do in the way that I wanted to do it.
Okay.
So I quit my job and started a firm.
Okay.
And because I just felt I'm going to have to do it differently. It's no point talking about it or thinking about it. If I think it should be different, then do it differently.
So it was like an itch that just had to be scratched.
Pretty much,
Okay.
yeah. And the first, the first version of that, I lived in Johannesburg and I started a consulting firm in Johannesburg.
Sure.
And
was that called Whipping the Cat?
no, that wasn't called Whipping the Cat.
We'll get to the name soon.
So that was called Legal and Commercial Solutions. And again, there's something.
Whipping the Cat's a way better name.
Way
than
better
that.
name. But again, there's something in it. At the time, I don't think I was bold enough. to be as edgy as a whipping the cat.
Yeah,
so
sure.
legal and commercial solutions sounds, it's not law firmy, but it's very safe.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Like the most safe. So the pendulum's out here all the way to here.
Correct. It was just
That's
describing
quite a big
it's
shift that you were
like
about to go through.
it's legal and commercial. That's how we're going to do things. You know,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
name told
yeah.
the story.
Yeah.
But it was, and then the firm appealed really to the large corporate still. So all we were doing was kind of supporting the large corporates in their legal needs.
Sure.
But that was, you know, that was my kind of batting practice. That was kind of honing the skill and figuring out what it was, all the time knowing that I was doing what I wanted, but it wasn't really what I wanted. But I had taken the plunge, but it wasn't the fully fledged kind of thing. Sure. At that point.
Like coiling the spring, and then at what point did you take that jump?
So I mean, a couple of things happened that kind of resulted in the jump, and the first one really, I think, was an understanding that this was still not quite what I wanted to do. The second was I relocated from Johannesburg to Cape Town.
Okay.
And moving to Cape Town, I very quickly learned that the economic environment here is quite different to that of Johannesburg. So the large corporate or even the big company, there's a lot less of them in Cape Town.
Sure.
But there's a much more vibrant entrepreneurial startup kind of space.
Sure.
And I kind of repositioned what was then Legal and Commercial Solutions, rebranded, relaunched it, created Whipping the Cat, which was far more aimed at that small to medium-sized business.
Quick side story, how did you come up with the name?
So in kind of thinking about the concept of the company, the idea was really to offer people exactly what they're looking for, give them a tailored service, giving something that feels just right when it's delivered to them. And so the concept or theme of tailoring or bespoke was very much in the creative concept of the business.
Yes.
And working with an agency who we did a barter deal with on us giving them legal service and them giving us the creative. They pitched a couple of names to us, and one of them picked up on this tailoring theme, and the name was Whipping the Cat. And they now tell me that of the 3 or 4 names that they pitched, that was the real outlier, that they didn't think there was a hope in hell that I would go for it.
Well, from legal and commercial services to Whipping the Cat, that's a far leap.
Correct.
Sure.
And they put the 4 names down. I was like, okay, that's the one, we'll do it. The theme on that was really in a turn of phrase in early 1800 England for people that were going and getting their tailored suits in Savile Row, typically with all the high-end tailors.
Sure.
Tailors that had learned their skill there broke away and took those skills to outlying areas in England or around the world. And the establishment of Savile Row, in a bit of a disparaging way, that the guys were daring to break the mold and go and do their own thing, said, oh, those guys are off whipping the cat.
Okay.
So that's kind of what
a great story. That's
what
amazing.
Our story is. We're kind of breaking the mold, taking the good legal service, taking what's good of it, but actually trying to get it out there to more people so that you don't have to go to high-end Savile Row to get a good feeling. Same thing. You don't have to go to high-end kind of law firms in order to get the service that you're looking for.
Gotcha. And it speaks to, I suppose, the innovative and disruptive way that you're deploying legal services now, and you speak a lot about new law. And I want to just tap into that and talk to how different your approach is now, and maybe also speak to how law is changing on a macro level for people like us, for small to medium-sized entrepreneurs and people who are really kind of embracing this new digital economy.
Yes. So, and the concept of new law is really not that new anymore, because as I said, it's been a bit of an evolution. But the new law concept really is about kind of doing things differently, or alternative legal service providers.
Okay.
So in the UK a couple of years ago, they actually changed their law to enable what they called alternative legal service providers to get a license and actually trade as a legal service provider. Which gave rise to a whole lot of new entities providing legal services within the UK. And similar things have happened in other countries, and similar things have happened in South Africa, where you're getting kind of non-traditional law firms providing legal services. And some of that is still providing fairly traditional type legal services. But you also got new entities, so legal process outsourcers, you've got HR consultants, you've got software companies that are all kind of now kind of getting into the legal space and creating this kind of new category of legal services, aside from what was, you know, the traditional reserve of the law firm.
And I also see it as also this way of doing law that doesn't require, you know, a kind of foreshore office block with, you know, big fancy ostentatious foyers and you know, lots and lots of law clerks running around and offering you coffee at every given second. I mean, there's less of that show and more on the delivery. Would that be accurate?
I think there is some of that, you know, but I think from a person's like a buying behavior, if you're looking to buy anything, the information is available. The access to information for most people now is there. So you can Google and find things, or you can jump on some other website platform, and your access to information is there.
So it's kind of democratizing law in a sense.
So I think it has become democratized, so you don't need to find out an answer. You don't need to go to a law firm. A lot of the stuff would be available. So I think that's created a little bit of a shift. I think people's expectation of how they receive their service has also changed. So, you know, using your example of saying going to a foreshore and to an office and all that kind of stuff, well, that just may not suit my lifestyle. That I need to get in a car and drive to an office and have a meeting at a specific time for a specific period and then leave. I may want that information at 10 o'clock this evening when I'm lying in bed.
Gotcha.
Or those kind of things. So I think that's created a demand as well in the market to say, well, this is not the way I want my legal services delivered to me.
It's fascinating. So it's kind of taking the whole mold and the framework that law has been deploying for so long and just pretty much shattering that and creating a new thing from the ground up, which is as I would imagine, listening to what you're saying, fluid. It's obviously quite robust in terms of the access to information, but it's also it's molded to my needs as who I am as an individual and what I'm creating as a company.
And I think, I mean, it's still very much a combination, you know, at its core. I think legal services is a personal service, but there's a lot of stuff that doesn't require a personal intervention all the time or at every point. So to the extent that certain stuff could be delivered, the stuff that you need just enough to get you through, etc. Maybe you need to chat about it. Maybe you need to, you know, have that discussion to figure out to unlock some stuff. Maybe that needs a personal intervention. Maybe there's AI that can do that. Maybe there's AI that can do 90% of that, and there's just the last 10% that gets the human touch.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So I think there is a transformation in that, and just a reassessing as to, you know, what really is needed from delivering a legal service in terms of what a person, a client, a business is actually looking for. What is the outcome that they're trying to achieve? And then kind of retrofitting that.
So Graeme, I mean, you have now created this amazing firm that's servicing you know, SMEs and obviously quite a few larger companies, but and you really have, I mean, you've won a stack of awards and you're seen as one of the new front runners of new law and all that. I mean, just talking to where Whipping the Cat is going, how do you see that evolving, say, if you put a lens to the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I think probably just growing out, kind of doing what we're doing. So, I mean, interestingly for me, I thought Whipping the Cat would be very, very tech enabled, and it's probably less tech enabled than I thought it would be. And the reason for that is a lot of the tech that I would like to use, there's some smart tech, is just still prohibitively expensive because it's from the States or from the UK or whatever. So kind of on the rand buying power of that tech, it actually doesn't make a good, you know, the cost benefit. It's easier still to kind of put bums on seats. So, you know, I'm at the stage where it's quite tricky, where it's easy to just kind of become more traditional and say, okay, we've got more work, more clients, we need more people.
Sure.
And you kind of just do what the traditional kind of law firm would do, and
Sure.
just have more people doing more work and taking a margin. So it's trying to resist that, and actually kind of make sure that you're kind of building for the future to balance it with the right tech. Fortunately, there's a lot of development that's now starting to happen in South Africa in the legal tech space. So the cost, access to the tech the price is coming down. So for me, the way I see it in 5 years' time is kind of like more of the same, just scaled. So it's really about giving people what they want. So if it's a human touch, you'll get the human touch. If it's actually access, ease, self-help, then absolutely, the ability to be able to do that as well.
Gotcha.
But it's Whipping the Cat, I don't think is going to be kind of an IT tech company with running just tech or creating products. There may be some products, and I don't think it's going to be a traditional law firm. But it's going to be somewhere in between, and it will kind of evolve. The key thing being kind of understanding what people are looking for, what their needs are, and then making sure that we're able to meet that need in a way that continues to feel tailored, comfortable. That's where we need to be.
Brilliant. Thank you. Well done on all the success to date, and long may it continue.
Thanks, Fred.